Hello, welcome to Crash Flash episode 44? Who knows, the numbers are getting up there. Maybe when we hit episode 50 I'll do a massive Q&A. Regardless, we're nearly at 17,000 subscribers and that's particularly a good thing. Oh, I should mention, game in the background is probably going to be Isle 2 or some grid, I'm not entirely sure. We'll see how it matches for time. And yes, that annoying subscribe and bell button pop up in the bottom. That's something new that I've developed. It's been working particularly well. I mean, interaction is key. That's how YouTube works nowadays, unfortunately. I can't just post a video and it be posted to all of the 17,000 people who've subscribed. No. Oh, YouTube, your infinite wisdom is considerably a strain on a lot of creators that desperately need either help or, I guess, emotional support. It's because of decisions that YouTube does in the background that sort of jeopardizes the whole entire platform, and I did mention this in the last video. Regardless. What else did we talk about in the last month? We talked about the bushfires, we talked about the effects on firefighters, talked about the fire front. Thankfully things have started coming down. About 3 weeks ago we had a bit of a weather change, everything started calming down, and that was good. That was a nice sort of set change. It was important too, because had the weather continued on it would have become so much of a problem. And for many parts of Australia it still is a major problem, but where I am, thankfully, the smoke is no more. It's still a major concern. It's still dangerous, but I guess it's calmed down to a slightly calmer level. Obviously, 3,000 reserve personnel were called up, first time that's ever happened since the Second World War. So that was interesting to help out with the immediate danger. But having said that, you know, troops and reserve troops, and not exactly firefighters, are they? So there was a massive sort of logistical problem and a logistical nightmare there based on what was happening. So again, that's particularly interesting. And now we have the Wuhan virus. The media is completely going nuts over it. Fear-mongering is out there, although partly due to the Chinese government well, we don't know. We don't know whether it's censoring numbers or whether they're trying to hush it up. I've seen many videos claiming there's nearly 70,000 people infected with the coronavirus, so to speak, or the strand of virus that comes out of the SARS incident in 2002-2003. But strange times we live in. The old meme format of, oh, there's going to be a plague in the 20s. You know, 1720, 1820, 1920, we all had different kind of epidemics. And I guess that's just part of human, I wouldn't say evolution, but I guess human existence. We've had to put up with pathogens and viruses that have wanted to kill us for many years. In fact, ever since time began, I think, we were fighting these kind of things. But they evolve as we do, as our immune systems, you know, grow and protect. You know, more pathogens and you know, different strains of different viruses grow and mutate into different things. But it's all up in the air, I suppose. It's not really that worrying, apart from the fact that my local fire brigade put out a bit of a virus sort of warning there. They're sort of like, okay, well, if you're going on the fire ground and you're trying to respond to an incident that's happened, whether that be a motor vehicle or a house that's burning or something, yeah, please ensure that you're wearing the correct personal protective equipment, and when you get back to station, make sure you wash all your gear. It's stuff we do standard anyway, but it's just a little bit of a, interesting. I wonder why they're telling us this. Probably because they're expecting it to spread a lot further than what is predicted. A few of you asked what was my role in the fires, and if I was okay. It seems like every content creator in Australia is like, oh my goodness, are you, anyone who's international or from Australia and concerned about different content creators online is like, are you okay? Are you good? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. I personally am fine. I know a few content creators who are really struggling because they've got no access to anything, really, any infrastructure sort of thing. But they're in the minority. A lot of people are hurting. Farmers, families, and it's an awful mess to see. And we're entering a stage right now where it's 2 months past the actual disaster itself, and cleanup has finally, I guess, subsided. The military has been pulled back from its role as a logistics provider, and there is a huge amount of things going on. I myself am a member of the Country Fire Authority. It's one of, I think we have 7 or 8 states. We have a lot of different fire services and different fire branches in Australia. It's one of the things that I hate the most about Australia. We don't have one centralised main. We don't call it the Australian Fire Service, the AFS. That's what I wish it would be called. But instead we have, each state has their own different fire branch. For example, in New South Wales, it's the Rural Fire Service for the majority of that particular thing, and they do have a paid full-time different organisation that operates, I think it's Metropolitan Fire Brigade, I don't think they call it that. Anyway, South Australia has, I think it's the South Australia Rural Fire Service, and then there's the Tasmanian Fire Service, and there's just different names. It's just utterly confusing. It's a big pain, but hey, that's that. Anyway, I'm a part of 2 brigades in the Country Fire Authority, which is the largest volunteer organisation in the world. It is also not paid, so I'm a volunteer, which means I've seen some shit. And this brings me to my next point. I finally handed in the towel. I was brought back initially and asked by my local captains, both of them had to sign off on this, that I would only be attending for the initial duration of the period that the fires became a threat. Previously, I had left just because of personal reasons. At the start of this year, I decided to hand the towel in. I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with this anymore. I'm going to come back again. I'm going to come back later when I'm feeling more emotionally stable. I mean, I've been a part of fighting fires and doing stuff like that for the last 5 years. I've been helping my community do just everything. Motor vehicle accidents, car fires, house fires, hazmat warnings, cat up a tree, bushfires, running grass fires. And I only recently sort of got qualified too. It was 2 years ago that I got fully qualified, but still. I guess it puts a toll on you, and a lot of firefighters don't talk about the toll, the emotional stress and the emotional pain that goes through with dealing with that. And on top of the fact that I still don't have full-time work. It's not good for your mental health. You become a vegetable and you just don't want to do anything. And then you listen, you're like, oh, hang on, is my pager going to go off? My pager goes off. You drop absolutely everything. You go out there, you run to your car, you grab your equipment, you shove your equipment on, if you've got it with you, if you haven't left it at the station. Jump in the truck. Okay, your crew leader is calling out where to go, you've got to print out on the map, everyone's getting ready, geared up, getting ready for whatever potential, hazard or emergency there was. And it's incredibly intense. And if it's a false alarm, everyone goes, oh, it's a false alarm, and you turn back around and you head back to your station. There's a lot of emotional stress, and the things that you do see, I don't wish anyone to see what I have seen. I've seen families torn apart. I've seen people mangled in vehicles. I've seen things that still horrify me, and I have nightmares about seeing those particular things. So for me, a major decision for me this year was quitting fire service for now. Obviously in Australia there are so many different fire services, that be paid or volunteer or whatever. Each state and territory has their own different fire service, but the point is, you can't go through so much emotional strain, plus being, particularly overweight, so I'm a liability to my brigade, plus having emotional problems and other sort of problems due to the fact that you're not employed, you're not exactly emotionally stable, and I'm not necessarily socially connected with anyone either. Sure, I talk to people, but again, it's not really talking, is it? I'm sort of that awkward bastard who sort of just skirts around the side and doesn't really say much. That's me. But anyway, the captains had to recall me, basically to say, listen, we need you just in case things get particularly heated. for the eventuality that the fires become so intense and particularly bad again that 2009 happens down in this area. Thankfully that hasn't been the case, but unfortunately for a lot of people, a lot of good people, they've lost properties and farmers are just struggling. I mean, I don't know. It's a pain, and people don't think about the after effects. You know, the media has stopped covering it. The media in Australia, it's quite funny, as soon as the Wuhan virus came up, it was like, nope, we're going to cover that instead. Oh, Trump's impeachment, we're going to cover that instead. Come on. I get that the media attention over December has been the focus of the fires. It was 3.5 weeks of just constant non-stop focus. As soon as that first weather change came through, like, no, we're not going to cover it anymore, it's over. Like, why? People still need to know what's going on. The recovery effort is still needed. But anyway, I am rambling quite a bit, as you can tell. I've left my brigades. I will probably go back sometime, but let's just say I've seen some shit. Some people know what I've seen. I have told some people on Discord what I've seen. It horrifies them. I don't really like to talk about it too much, but there's that. Because again, emotional stability is really key here. You want to remain emotionally stable. You don't want something to just completely derail you, and then you spend a week trying to recover from one incident, you could say. That happened to me 3 months ago. Completely, utterly just destroyed me for a week. I had problems out the rear, you know, I wasn't looking after myself, I wasn't caring for myself, you know. You're too busy thinking about others to just sort of actually get a grip on reality. Speaking of getting a grip on reality, let's talk about the channel. How has the channel been doing? It's been doing okay. I wouldn't say it's doing great, but at the same time, it's not necessarily doing any worse than it was last year. Granted, it's the new year. January tends to be the kind of month where everything slows down. February is where it starts to pick up a little bit. We've seen some interesting things happen, but I haven't really been feeling like doing videos, and the main reason was just mainly the fire season, I guess. Now everybody's worrying about other little things. I can basically focus on finding work again, but that's incredibly hard when you've got major industries shutting down. You've got people who don't have homes that have been burnt from fires. There's a lot of volunteering positions and things going up, but I don't need to volunteer. I need, full-time work. And I've sort of been thinking, how do I transition into a point where I'm happy with the channel and happy to a point where I can continue doing videos, but also still, continue to find work? And initially, that's what I said on my Patreon page. It says, look, if you do support me, this is what's happening. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing the YouTube as a side thing, and it was always my side thing. I'm starting to think now that this is one of my only, if only, chances at a career, and I don't want that to be a thing. I want to do engineering-based stuff. I want to go out, I want to do engineering maintenance, or I want to go do different things. I love that kind of stuff. That's what I really like. It's terrible work, and it's hard work. Any job is. But it's better than me as a 12-year-old stuck on my grandparents' farm doing fencing in the 40-degree day to try and stop cattle from getting out of a paddock or a field. And I guess I was always Grandad's favourite grandchild. I still am to this kind of day. He'd let me do all sorts of things. I used to go up with some of the scouting helicopters. I used to go up there. The guy would be flying around, and we'd go out and just search for cattle and have a look for broken fences and check waterways and all sorts of things. There was a homestead on the property just outside of Seymour. It was backed right up to the military base, and we were one of the only farms that had aviation clearance to fly right up to the borders. So if it was a particularly clear day and we'd take the helicopter up, we could see the Australian Army using their Leopards, the AS-1s, just rolling around doing the training in some of the stuff. It was utterly fantastic. Occasionally we'd fly directly over, but we're only allowed to do that once or twice. But again, Grandad was commandant of that particular base. I say commandant, he was the commander of that base for a short period of time. So everyone sort of knew him, and the locals sort of knew who he was and where he was, so it was always convenient to us, I suppose. Going back to the whole YouTube thing, I wasn't necessarily sure whether I should go full-time with YouTube. it's not something that I've ever really considered. I don't really have the numbers to back it up. The financial gain is not necessarily worth it, and the content I'm producing, I'm unsure about. And when you're unsure about something, you're not dead set certain on this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to achieve it. This is exactly what I want to do. YouTube, the variables are completely different. You know, one day the AI algorithm could promote your channel to where it blows up. Another day it could shut your channel down. My very first video on this channel was the opening of the closed beta tanks. So the closed beta testing for tanks, and I managed to grind myself to the Tiger with a couple of friends, and we reenacted Erica, and it was about 15 seconds long. And that particular first video got completely and utterly demolished recently by YouTube. Keep in mind this video was nearly 5 years old, so my very first video, 5 years old, and they decided to terminate it for hate speech because apparently using 15 seconds of Erica, you know, the German marching song, is considered hate speech due to the fact that now it's become such a meme, people are complaining about it. And as a result, a lot of other German music that has nothing to do with the Germans in the Second World War, and even some of the German songs in the First World War, are now considered to be of a certain kind of ideology, which if I mention, YouTube's going to pick up and probably remove the video. But YouTube is constantly evolving, constantly changing. There are rules and regulations, and there are things happening all the time. My biggest concern is that this channel probably won't exist, or will cease to exist in the next 6 months, 7 months, due to the fact that YouTube is taking a drastic sort of shit show. As I mentioned in the last video of Crash with Ash, episode 43, that it's not exactly the best place to make a living, and I am trying my darned hardest to get any work I possibly can. I suppose that's the moral of the story here. You know, everyone looks up to YouTube and goes, I'm going to go do that. If you've got kids in your class, or you know family members that want to be YouTubers and stuff, I wouldn't say dissuade them from doing it. Creativity is hard. I look at other content creators and I go, how the fuck did you manage to do that? I love the video. Or, you know, in some cases I go, oh, yeah, some other content creator has done that before. No content is truly original online, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. But you can have a little bit more of a personal, intimate connection with your audience. Lately, I've been of the mental mindset that I really shouldn't tell people what's going on in my livelihood. And I'm not open, but as I said earlier in the video, I like talking to people, and if I get a chance to talk to people and someone goes, how are you? I go, oh yeah, that question. Because it's just not something you really, I guess, expect. I was talking with another content creator, and he was like, yeah, but people really don't give a fuck what you're up to, what you're doing. And sure, there are going to be a lot of people that will be like, hang on, I care about what you're doing, Ash. You know, you're important, very important, and I get that, but there is a certain level of information that you really shouldn't be privy to. That really doesn't matter. A lot of the stuff that I talk about in these Crash with Ash episodes are quite intimate, quite personal. And I feel that is just a testament to the kind of channel that I'm trying to build here. It's not really about the gameplay, it's not really about the experience, it's sort of just about having a little bit of fun in the limited world that I can have fun in. I don't really have much else going for me other than, well, I would say the Fire Brigade, but I haven't really been doing that in the last week or so. For me, I've always put myself on a bit of a continuous improvement plan. Think of it like a business, I operate it like a business. I'm not operating it particularly well. It's existing. I could do a lot better, you know. I could do more War Thunder videos. I could do more in-depth, you know, talk about this problem, that problem, and get 20,000 views, no problem. But it's not for me. I think that changing games is really hard because it's a little bit like Stockholm Syndrome in a way. I've talked about this continuously. It's not just War Thunder, it's just gaming in general. I'm a little over it. But the channel's a little bit of a stagnated position. We've got some interesting content coming up, so you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll keep this short and sweet, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.